so much happening today, and we hope that is going to continue, because we think that this is going to be a major area of growth for us.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo promotes Nigeria's organic tech solutions as he woos investors in the U.S.
We monitor, we follow up these MSMs to make sure that they run their business the way it's supposed to be run, achieve the targets, and return back any money if it's a loan.
Growing the small and medium enterprises sector in providing millions of jobs in focus ahead of 2019 World SME Day.
The National Treasury Workshop has now become a veritable tool for providing the much-needed platform for sharing quality information and knowledge.
Accountants and other financial experts brainstorm in Kano and curbing corruption, wastage, and unplanned expenditure in government.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we will beam our searchlight on efforts in tackling the Almajiri phenomenon.
All right, the Almajiri syndrome or phenomenon has been a long-standing practice that has generated concern for government and the people on account of the attendant social consequences of the phenomenon. And those consequences, of course, include insecurity and a negative image it portrays for the country.
You know, Kinsley, the Almajiri children mostly aged between 5 by 15. They are adults and are well established as Almajiris. Some of them are sent home from their destination to Islamic teachers for religious instruction. For instance, a child born in Sokoto will find his way to Maiduguri and never find his way back home again. And he is expected to take care of him. That's the Malam. But reverse is the case, actually.
Absolutely. That's to say the reality is quite different, as these children who are in the Almajiri system end up being left to fend for themselves at such a tender age and are therefore exposed to many hazards. More worrisome, of course, are reports of the Almajirids. I hope that is the correct plural. Sometimes I also hear Almajiri. Being indoctrinated by some of the Malams through teachings that push them into acts that are ultimately harmful to society.
And Kinsley, according to statistics, it's believed that they account for about 8 to 10 million of the 13.5 million out-of-school children. I think it's more than that, actually. And they have unfortunately become ready tools, like you say, to be exploited by these unscrupulous persons for selfish interest.
Now, the present-day Almajiri system is believed to be a far cry from its original concept, as what is happening now is characterized largely by begging as the main source of survival for the children who are involved in the system.
And under the Almajiri system, during the pre-colonial days, these people lived with their parents for moral upbringing. All the schools were located within the immediate environment from where the peoples get education.
That's right. And at the time that you also referred to, where there were inspectors who supervised the Almajiri system, and those inspectors reported directly to the emir. In fact, it is argued that during that period, we saw what was the height of the Quranic education system in northern Nigeria.
Well, the reality as it is now is worrisome and unacceptable, as the problems associated with it are enormous. The president recently spoke of the need to gradually eradicate the practice, but is that possible, Chrissy?
Well, they have to start from somewhere, and they didn't indicate that there will be an automatic solution. When the president spoke, it was to governors who were in Abuja for the inauguration of the National Economic Council that will function from 2019 to 2023. And the president, of course, charged the governors to prioritize education and ensure that all children of school age are indeed in school.
And the president also noted at the meeting that the right of the child must be protected and respected by ensuring that every child of school age is in school, not on the street begging. So this morning we shall discuss tackling the Almajiri phenomenon. Good Morning Nigeria welcomes you. I am Jumma Yusuf, and it's always good to have you join us on the program, broadcast live on the network service of the NTA.
And I'm Kingsley Osalolo. I join my colleague Jumai to also welcome you to this edition of the program, in the course of which we have our complimentary segments. And these, of course, include newspaper review, business, and others. In the meantime, of course, we're taking the highlights of the morning news now. And I'm sure, by the way, Jumai, did you watch the Super Eagles take on their opponents yesterday?
Yeah,
and
1-0 with Guinea.
Qualify for the second round. That was a heartwarming performance by the Super Eagles.
It just starts now. The war starts now.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. But
exactly.
it was thrilling to watch them, and I also saw the vulnerability of the Egyptians, even though they triumphed 2-0 against Zimbabwe. Abdul Malik, let's have the highlights of the news with you. Did you watch the match, by the way?
I did, and I can see the excitement all over you this morning. Good
you.
morning and welcome to the morning news. I'm Abdul Malik Adio. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo is rebanding Nigeria's business identity in investment market in the United States of America. At a meeting with investors and foreign policy experts on Nigeria's economy in New York, Professor Yemi Osinbajo explained that the solid foundation laid by the Buhari administration in the last 4 years has opened up new vista for local and foreign investors.
Developing, a very vibrant fintech sector. And as you know, there are so many areas in which just the development of software, the development of apps and all of that is so, there's so much happening today. And we hope that is going to continue, because we think that this is going to be a major area of growth for us, especially also for jobs.
Administration's policy to curb corruption in governance. The Office of the Accountant General of the Federation has organized a 2-day workshop for relevant stakeholders in finance and account from federal and state government to address corrupt tendencies, waste and unplanned expenditures in government circle, as workshop seeks to find workable ways of resolving contention arising from dwindling revenue profile and its attendant consequence.
Two, for providing the much-needed platform for sharing quality information and knowledge that help to keep us abreast with public financial management reform that government has been taking at all levels.
Now, the small and medium enterprise sector contributes more than 40% to Nigerians' GDP annually, creating employment for millions of people as Nigerians, however, prepares to celebrate the 2019 World SME Day. The plight of such entrepreneurs in areas of access to loans is again coming to the fore.
We do what we call business development service, post-training support, which means we monitor, we follow up these MSMEs to make sure that they run their businesses the way it's supposed to be run, achieve the targets, and return back any money if it's a loan.
Senate President Ahmed Lawal has stated that the 9th Senate will not keep any stone unturned in its legislative intervention towards ensuring that Nigeria attains self-sufficiency in food production. He was speaking during a meeting with the Chinese ambassador to Nigeria.
Nigeria will continue to work with China in the area of technology to improve our agriculture sector. The administration of President Buhari is an administration that is working hard to diversify the Nigerian economy.
A message from His Excellency Li Zhanshu, Chairman of the National People's Congress of the People's Republic of China, to His Excellency Ahmed Lawal, President of the Senate of the 9th National Assembly.
Now, issues of torture, extrajudicial killings and abuse in Nigeria have once again been brought to the front burner as Nigeria joins the rest of the world to mark International Day Against Torture. What is the situation in the country at the moment? An effort to stop this vice.
People are so scared to come out because I think basically nothing is done about it, I think the government has a lot to do, We need to do much more than we are doing. And then also the citizenry are not aware of their rights.
Enjoined the citizenry to always report any case of torture.
And that's the morning news. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Jumai and Kingsley after the break.
One football confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hot Sports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Nigeria's premier sports production and marketing group, Hot Sports, partners with the biggest, the largest, and the #1 television network in Africa, the NTA, to give Nigerians a memorable viewing experience. Boost fan support for the Super Eagles to glory in Egypt. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Team huddle.
But we lost.
Don't be tired, guys. This isn't a loss. It's a practice for winning.
Nothing makes a mother prouder than seeing her child growing up. But I know as he learns to lead, he'll face even more dirt, germs, and risk of illness.
That's why in changing seasons, you need strong Dettol protection. Because Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
NTA Television College JOS announces admissions into 2-year diploma programs in film and television production, television engineering, and broadcast journalism. The sale of forms will commence on the 13th of May and run through 30th July 2019. Admission forms can be obtained from all marketing offices, NTA state capital stations, zonal centers, or at the office of the academic secretary, NTA Television College, Rayfield, JOS.
On payment of a non-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA TV College. Applicants can also obtain the forms through the NTA TV College portal at www.ntatvc.edu.nj.
Applicants are required to possess 5 credits in GCE or SSCE in relevant areas of study in not more than 2 sittings, including English and mathematics. All properly completed forms attached with photocopies of credentials must be submitted on or before 30th July 2019. For further inquiries, please visit our website at ntatvc.com or call 0803-3144-383.
NTA TV College, training you to be the best you want to be.
Registrar, Announcer.
Our country is filled with people with different skills, talents, and passion to succeed. And like the game football, we all have a position to play. Some save the day. They put themselves on the line for the others. They are the goalkeepers. Some are in charge of protection. They keep the line safe from attackers. They are the defenders. The midfielders are the ones who bring us together. They also show support and point other players in the right direction. And the strikers, they are the goal-getters. They break barriers and steal the show. As a team, we are unstoppable. For this country to succeed, we must play as Nigeria United.
All right, welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, today is World MSME Day 2019, and trading, of course, in agricultural produce. Those are 2 stories our correspondent in business is tracking.
It's good to have you join us on Business News. Now, today is World Micro, Small and Medium Scale Enterprises Day. The celebration this year centers on contribution of small companies to global economy. MSMEs, which account for more than 90% of all businesses and around 70% of jobs worldwide, play a pivotal role in stimulating economic growth and providing employment for vulnerable groups such as women, young entrepreneurs in poor communities. In 2017, to recognize the importance of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises in promoting innovation, creativity, and decent work for all, and achieving the goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the United Nations General Assembly declared 27 June to be MSME Day by adopting Resolution 71-279. As the United Nations entity supports the internationalization of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, the International Trade Center is working with partners on a series of events marking MSME Day across the world. This includes the launch of ITC's flagship report, the SME Competitiveness Outlook 2019, which this year explores financing for MSMEs under the heading Big Money for Small Business. Meanwhile, an economy analyst commends the efforts of the federal government in funding this sector while also expressing optimism that measures on ground to fast-track their growth will no doubt get better if the right policies are adopted and well implemented.
We are not yet there because there are a lot of challenges, simply because sometimes some MSME require funds, and the funds are readily not available. And even if they are available, what it takes to attract the funds, some players within the MSME do not have the requirement. So for now, it's on the rise, but we cannot say we are there yet because of these challenges that are confronting us as a people.
MSME Day 2019 is dedicated to raising awareness on the need for greater investment into small and mid-sized businesses in developing countries, but it's also a celebration of the huge contributions smaller companies make to the global economy, often away from the spotlight. And to agriculture, farmers across Africa may likely smile to the bank in the nearest future. This is because of the advantages embedded in the Africa Free Trade Area, but only if the farmers can vouch for a continental trade of agricultural produce within the continent. Economic watchers say this is expected to push further Africa's agricultural trade to more than $20 million. Even though Nigeria is yet to sign documents on the free trade area, the country is, however, a major exporter of agricultural produce to more than 12 countries in West Africa and East Africa. Now let's see how the equities market fared this Wednesday. And on that note, we wrap business news. Many thanks for your time. I'm Joy Uzo.
Thank you, Joy. Newspaper review is next on Good Morning Nigeria.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebe, is with us on the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Jume.
Good morning, Bayo.
I overheard you discussing the Super Eagles. That 73-minute header gave Nigeria the winning goal and qualifying for the round of 16. It also lowered the blood pressure of many soccer-loving Nigerians.
Exactly.
You know, I have a colleague where when the Super Eagles are playing, he said, those boys will kill somebody. So he will watch. He will stay in one place, and when he hears goal, he will come and say, is it the Super Eagles?
Well, he has missed it already.
Then he will sit down and watch the replay.
He has missed the moment.
Yeah, he says he will only watch the replay. But if it is against Super Eagles, he will walk away.
You know, our boys really played their hearts out yesterday, and it was like watching Arsenal with their finesse, with their flair, and it was a typical Nigerian kind of football. I've not seen that in quite a while, actually.
For me, watching righteous beasts in those days of their glory.
Yeah, exactly. Kinsley, why quiet?
I thought you were going to say Aliou Salam Rocks. They had a brilliant goalkeeper there. His name was Dennis Fenty.
Yes.
That was in the 70s. But I think that the Super Eagles really got Nigerian soccer lovers excited in the second half. You know, the first half was almost, try to master the Guineans. But by the second half, it was clear that they were the dominant force.
They were in control.
Yeah, if they hadn't scored, then it would have been some grave injustice by the god of soccer to have denied Nigeria of that goal.
You know, at times,
our next opponent is Madagascar.
Yeah.
That's right.
Are they still Madagascar? Sometimes they were called Malagasy.
Yes,
I think what
Madagascar. They changed the name from Malagasy as the huge island off the coast of the southern coast of Africa. They are also fresh in the Cup of Nations.
Yes,
Madagascar.
But no minions in African football now?
And none at
They've
all.
all caught up with the Super Eagles.
Well, they're trying to play catch-up.
You know, I was watching CNN yesterday, sports, and one of these discussants was saying that Mali and I think another country, they are the dark horses, and, they can just spring a surprise in a moment.
Yes, they were tipping at Algeria.
Yes.
But, everybody becomes a bookmaker when you have a continental championship.
Absolutely. Okay. But as I mentioned to Jumai when we were kicking off the program, I felt some sympathy for DRC, that's Democratic Republic of Congo. Yeah, the scoreline didn't reflect the run of play. I think that again the god of soccer was just unkind to them, because if they had a marksman, a good finisher, the results might have been different. 2-0 in favor of Egypt. It didn't quite reflect the effort and commitment of the Congolese.
Sadly, in football, it's not how well you play, it's the number of goals you score.
That's right. It's not like boxing.
I think some more surprises will spring up in the last 16. Moving on, I will begin today's paper review with the Leadership newspaper. World Bank spends 14 billion on states. That's coming from governors. With rider, court squashes criminal charge against Bajabia Miller. You find that on page 23. And the World Bank spends 4 billion on states. It's just inside the newspaper. And then our bold headlines: Boko Haram famished, desperate for food. That's coming from the Nigerian army. And with the rider, as troops intensify clearance operations, Burate pledges to address soldiers' operational challenges. You find that on page 4. And the picture message there, Chinese ambassador to Nigeria presenting a souvenir to Senate President Ahmed Lawan at the National Assembly Abuja yesterday. And National Assembly management begins implementation of illegal conditions of service. At the bottom plate of the Leadership, 210 applicants for police screening. That's on page 6. 1.3 billion tax dispute. Witness absence stalls hearing on MTN suit. That's on page 26. And PMB Dangote orders for ABU alumni compendium lunch. You find that on page 2. Tribunal adjourns hearing in Atiku's petition to July 1st. You find that on page 2 also. FG Highway begins ICT training for civil servants. You find that on page 6. And 62 million Nigerians lack potable water, says EU. That's on page 2.
All right, let's take a look at the Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune, beginning with the headlines above the name flag. It says 3.4 billion naira pension contribution not remitted into states' employees' RSAs. RSA stands for Retirement Savings Accounts. And this story, of course, is attributed to PENCOM. The story continues on page 10. Buhari appoints John as Kachuku's replacement on NNPC board. Actually, it's been named as the alternate chairman of the NNPC board. That's on page 10 in greater detail. Below the nameplate, you have a number of headlines. Let's take a couple of them. I spent 1.2 billion naira, not 2.3 billion naira, for burials. That's attributed to the former governor of Bauchi State. Details on page 31. INEC, most improved public agency in Nigeria since 1999. That's attributed to the chairman of INEC, and that's on page 7. 30 states to experience severe flooding from July. And the flooding will be helped by inflow of water from the boundary in River Niger and River Benue. Details of that story can be found on page 4. 30 states to experience severe flooding from July. Now, court quashes criminal charge against Bajabia Miller. Jumai already read that. World Drug Day, 2,077 arrested in 9 states for drug abuse. 188 million use cannabis globally. That's on pages 5 and 33. JAMB releases results of 3,736 more candidates. Withdraws results of 4 candidates. That story is on page 29. Bayo, let's take the stories and then we'll return to another paper, The Punch.
Let's start with the alarming statistics you gave about drug abuse. 2,077 arrested in 9 states, and the United Nations says 188 million people around the world use cannabis. But here in Nigeria, yesterday was International Day Against Drug Abuse, and drug abuse and illicit trade is described as the window to crime and waste of precious talent in our nation. This appeal was made by the governor of Kwara State, Abdurrahman Abdurazak, and he is calling on parents, civic groups and religious organizations to key into campaign against drug abuse. Meanwhile, the state commander of NDLA in Nasarawa State has also raised alarm about drug abuse among students and commercial transporters. NDLA Justice Arinze says that abuse of psychotropic substances is alarming. In Nasarawa alone, Nasarawa State, 49 dealers were arrested, 39 has been convicted. In Kebbi State, 59 drug dealers were arrested within the period of 6 months. In Sokoto, 75% of those arrested in cases of drug abuse are between the ages of 15 and 27. And the NDLEA also has pointed out one critical situation in the rivers. More women indulge in cocaine taking in River State than men. And the NDLEA says that the drug abuse is alarming and it demands collective responsibility by all and one. 26th June every year is International Day for Drug Abuse.
Are we going to return next year? Incidentally, we discussed this topic yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah. Are we going to return next year and then be looking at how the numbers are climbing and what is happening? The guest yesterday on our discussion segment spoke on the major challenges that we are facing, whether from the demand side or from the supply side, and the fact of the negative creativity of drug users spreading across various demographic categories. My principal concern always is, yes, we have the NDLEA. NDLEA is a federal establishment. But what is it that we are seeing being done by local governments and by state governments? They are supposed to have either ministries of or departments of social welfare. So what is being done at that level, and also what is also being done by the orientation agency in terms of public enlightenment? Otherwise, we'll come back next year and then we're saying the World Drug Day and these are the numbers, And
it becomes day celebrations and it ends. Yeah. But this is a silent killer of our youth population, particularly in most of the major cities. NDLE's report indicated that Kano and Lagos, the highest populated cities, are gradually being decimated by drug abuse.
Yes. Unfortunately, it was also said, well, there's nothing unfortunate or unfortunate about it, that certain assumptions that we had in the past on account of surveys that were done, that the Northwest was the most impacted in terms of drug abuse. It's not been discovered that actually the Southwest, it's also grown in terms of numbers with regard to drug abuse. And the various substances that can be abused are amazing. I mean, we had a former DG of NDLEA who came and was saying something about beards. Luckily, Bayo, you and I, we are clean-shaven, so there's no risk.
But that's the vote now, So you need to move with the trend. I still think that the drug abuse phenomenon is increasing by the day, and the fact that it goes beyond, young men and young people, goes to the home where wives and children are taking it at the same time. Believe me, if by next year we're here talking about statistics, I don't know how we're going to tackle a situation like that. Not statistics is there, but what is on ground? Are we walking the talk?
Yes, I think the alarm has been raised, but then it has to be followed up with concerted efforts, a persistent campaign. And that is very important. It's not enough to wait and say you arrest them and you rehabilitate them. But we must, the NDLEA is doing its bit by trying to arrest those who are dealers and therefore eliminating the source. When you eliminate the source and the supplies are cut off, then you now face the challenge of rehabilitation so that those that have become victims can be properly restituted back to normalcy. But it needs all hands to be on deck, as it is often said. There was this other story we read about food supply to the insurgents. That is the latest strategy that the armed forces are using. And it's also being used by those who are fighting the bandits. Particularly, there's a new operation in Zamfara State, which is called Hadarin Daji. Yes. They've cut off the food supply, and therefore they are trying to smoke them out. Meanwhile, the military have also engaged insurgents who launched attack at Goniri in Gujba local government area of Yobe State yesterday. They have overcome them. The police, too, are making tremendous effort. In Gombe State, they caught 4 alleged kidnappers in their area. The police spokesman for that area, Superintendent Mary Malum, says that the kidnappers have been terrorizing people in Gombe and Borno State. In Kebbi State, too, 10 kidnappers among 45 suspected criminals that were arrested. The Commissioner of Police, Garba Danjuma, says the suspected kidnappers were arrested based on information they got from the persons. And one interesting thing is that they identify one as Rufai Likita. And it was observed that whenever he was in the community, kidnapping and other crime increased. And they traced and found out that he was actually an informant. He comes to town and informs kidnappers about who to pick and who has money. And the kidnappers later on go on. So, sequel to that, the police, you remember, put up a recruitment notice. They received as many of 315,000 applications. They've now shortlisted. You have 210, 150 that are shortlisted for recruitment. And if you go by statistics, it means, therefore, of those shortlisted, you are going to have about 10,000 are to be recruited. So you are going to have about 12,242 competing for the positions. And if you go by statistics, 182,926 were male, while 27,224 are females. The state that had the highest applicants was Niger State, 12,242, followed by Kano, 11,000. The list came from Lagos, 1,305, and Bayelsa, 1,414.
All right, so let the screening continue.
Yes.
And we hope we get the very best from amongst them. Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. Front page of the Punch newspaper. Lead story says pensions. States failed to remit 3.4 billion deducted from workers' pay, according to PENCOM. I already read that story, actually, from the Nigerian Tribune. But above the nameplate of the Punch newspaper, you have 3 headlines there. Let's take one of them very quickly. It says, NECA, CIBN, and MAN, and others back Sanusi's call for fuel subsidy removal. NECA, that's Employers Constitutive Association. Then CIBN is the Institute of Bankers, and MAN, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. And others back Sanusi's call for fuel subsidy removal. Details of that story can be found on page 33. And then right below the composite photographs you find there of youth corps members at the skill acquisition class in Gombe State, you have your following headlines. 16 Nigerian states risk polio outbreak. Bill Gates Foundation warns. That's on page 3. NDLEA intercepts 147 kilograms of drugs at Lagos Airport. We already discussed drugs. Now, TRCN, that is the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, insists on December deadline for teachers' registration. That story is in greater detail on page 8.
There was a story that was read about rainfall increase in July. There's a contrast to that. Farmers are worried over late rains and irregular rainfall in parts of the country. Daily Trust reports that while some parts of the country are having sufficient rain, other parts are having scanty rainfall. Therefore, farmers in scanty rainfall areas are said to be in desperate situation because their crops are drying up. Such farmers include those in the Nasarawa State. For instance, a rice farmer in parts of Nasarawa State who planted early June have had their crops wiltering. And so that is a serious concern. The other one is when you hear of truancy, naturally you think about students or people staying away from school. It's not the same thing in Bayelsa State. In Bayelsa State, the State House of Assembly is worried about teacher truancy. The House has resolved to invite the Commissioner of Education, heads of units of the State Basic Education and Post-Primary Board, as well as the Nigerian Union of Teachers. They want them to explain why teachers are refusing to go into rural schools. And they found out that when teachers are posted to the rural schools, the tendency is that they refuse to report or they walk their way back to the state capital.
Okay, Bayo.
So we have truant teachers.
Truant teachers. They increase.
Absentee teachers.
No, Kesley. Thank you so much, Bayo, for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. It's been a pleasure as always. We'll take a break right now. When we return, more on Good Morning Nigeria.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Do you desire to master new techniques and technologies of camera operations? Then you must attend NTA TV College Special 4-Week Intensive Course on Modern Camera Operation Techniques. The course is designed for cameramen in private and public television stations, ministries, departments, agencies, and faith-based organizations. Take advantage of the course to upgrade your professional skills in single and multi-camera operations within just 4 weeks. Also, a special course on intermediate online news reporting skills for journalists, multimedia producers, and freelance reporters will run concurrently. Take advantage of NTA TV College's special 4-week course on online news reporting to upscale your capacity in computer-assisted reporting, social media content production strategies, online media platforms for dissemination of information, and much more. The venue for both courses is the serene and secure environment of NTA Television College near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos, Plateau State. Date 8th July to 2nd August 2019. Course fee 100,000 naira only per participant. Accommodation inclusive. For more information, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA Television College, Jos. Training you to be the best you want to be.
One Football Confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hot Sports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time, to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
This is Good Morning Nigeria. If you're just joining us, we're taking a look at efforts in tackling the Almajiri phenomenon. Let's begin with a background report by Serafina Okon.
The concept of Almajiri has to do with going to Islamic schools to learn and read the Holy Quran and its teachings for moral, economic and social benefits of the child. The Almajiri system of education in Nigeria over the years has attracted very large number of children in the northern part of the country. In all this, Nigeria still has a large number of out-of-school children and young adults with limited literacy skills. Though there have been pronouncements and declarations on the need to have all children educated, as reflected in the Education for All goals and the Millennium Development Goals, for which Nigeria is a signatory. However, the idea has not provided good prospects for these children's future, as the cost implications of a Almajiri system include human resources wastage, exposure of children to harsh environmental hazards, and deprivation of parental care. Another major challenges include illiterate teachers' involvement in teaching the children, lack of infrastructural facilities for learning, poor curriculum, and unprofessional handling of the pupils for effective learning. In sustaining the Almajiri school program, previous administrations took a bold step by undertaking pragmatic policies towards the reformation of the Almajiri schools in Nigeria. Concerns are high on the way out, and these experts advise should, among other things, be mainstreamed in the educational system, as formal education remains the epitome of globalized standard of modern-day childhood. The Buhari administration is committed to free and compulsory education as long-term objective of bringing to an end the phenomenon of out-of-school children. A step many see in the right direction in building the future leaders of tomorrow, for nation building in ensuring that every child of primary school age is in school rather than begging on the streets during school hours. President Buhari, at the inauguration of the Council of States, recently stated that the country's children have rights and must be protected under the law, as many have stated in their views. But how soon can government transform the Almajiri system of education for national development? Will enforcing and implementing the 2003 Child Right Act help the process? How best to tackle the Almajiri phenomenon seen as a security challenge and a scare? Answers and more with guests on Good Morning Nigeria shortly.
All right, thank you very much, Serafina Okon, for that background report. And by the way, President Muhammadu Buhari spoke at the inauguration of the National Economic Council, where he then talked about the need to ramp up the quality of education throughout the country. We already have guests with us in the studios here, as well as one of our network centers to discuss the Almajiri phenomenon. First, let's welcome Malam Garba Shehu, who is Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity. Malam Garba, a pleasure to have you with us again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you and good morning.
Also here with us in the studios, would like to welcome Bello Kagara, as Director of Social Mobilization of UBEC. That's the Universal Basic Education Commission.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay.
And we also have in the studio a regular, Awal Musa Sanjani, the Executive Director of the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning.
And in our Sokoto Network Center, we have Dr. Jabir Sani Mehula, Head of Arabic and Islamic Studies, Sokoto State University, in our Sokoto studio. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Good morning, Nigeria.
I just wondered, perhaps we might as well begin this conversation from our last guest who was introduced from our Sokoto Network Center, who is head of Arabic and Islamic Studies at Sokoto State University. Dr. Mehula, tell us something. Who is an Almajiri and what is the Almajiri system?
Well, thank you very much. This is a very good question. Firstly, I liked your introduction when the program started. You're talking about the Almajiri system has been deviated from its original form, and also from the report they talk about Almajiri system where people go about seeking Islamic knowledge for their morals, for their social interactions, for their education, everything. What we need to understand is that Almajiri, when this issue came on social media, there were a lot of debates, and it is based on what is called Almajiri. Firstly, it is referred to the street begging, and this is a common children going around, these kids going around begging and doing things, and they will end up in the wrong hand. It is also refers to the system of education whereby the teacher or a cleric will gather many children, many kids around him, and he will instruct them and he will teach them Islam. Now, what we need to understand is that Before the coming of colonial masters, this was the only way we could attain education. It was good, it worked for that time, and it's something that should be commendable at that time. Now we have new civilization in place, we have new method of seeking knowledge, things are made easier, government is in place, definitely there is no need of this Almajiri system. But we should appreciate the fact that before the coming of colonial masters, that was what worked for the North, especially. That was what worked for Hausa land. People believed that they need to send their children, their kids away from them for them to be able to attain Islamic knowledge. And it even works today. We see people sending their kids to boarding school, and it's approved by government. We see people sending their children outside to study. The idea of sending your child away from you to a malam, to a scholar, to a cleric, to university to study, and that this way enhances his ability of learning, this is an accepted idea, and this is a good idea. And it worked for Nigeria, it worked for the northern Nigeria, it worked for Hausa land, when it was the only alternative. Now the case is different.
With you, actually, you know, when the British came to Nigeria, they found in the northern part of the country an established system of government, you know, from the emirs to the districted and everything. And most children then were coming from home to learn. According to the Quran, you can seek knowledge as far as China. But has that concept been misconcepted by the people, and how it should be done?
Well, if you look at the classical and medieval literatures of scholars, you will find out that the classical and medieval scholars who are the proud of Islam, who are the people we refer to when you are quoting now, they didn't go through that system. That system, you can argue that the system of going out to beg in the name of studying is entirely something that is found in Hausa land. Even today in the world, in the most populated Muslim countries like Indonesia, in some of advanced Muslim countries such as Malaysia, such as Middle East, you couldn't find that. People do not rely on begging to seek Islamic education. Now the concept, as I said earlier, the concept of going far away from your family, far away from your home, far away from your parent to study, thinking that will make you to dedicate yourself on education, that will make you to acquire more knowledge, this is a welcome idea. It is implemented today world over. People will leave their country, will leave their homeland to go abroad to study. And when they come back, in most of the cases, they are found to be more sound than people who studied before their parent, because they don't have any distraction over there to study. So I think the misconception came later, when people think that we will send these children and they will go and beg and they will find what to sustain themselves. In the earlier days, it wasn't this way. It was the parents who were sending their children to school, and they will send the sustainers along with them. And their teachers then were very honest, in the sense that whenever they are given something to a parent, they make sure that they cater for the children the way they should be catered for. But today the reverse is the case. Still today, some of the parents will send food items to these teachers, but they will hide it, they use it for themselves. Sometimes they will sell it, and they will send the kids away to go and start begging and to sustain themselves.
All right, Dr. Mehula, thank you very much there for your opening. But I just would like to get also from the other guests in the studios their understanding conceptually of who an Almajiri is and what the system entails. Awalu Rafsanjani.
Thank you very much. Let me also share the views, expressed by the last speaker. It is true that, at a particular period in time, this is one, ways in which, children, and not only even children, actually even adults, get educated. Because at that time, not only people going to the boarding school, like some of us also, we did a Makaranta Allo, we call it Makaranta Allo. We go there from our parents' homes every day, we come back to the house, but at times, like in the early 70s, there's a, establishment of Islamia school, which now is gone beyond just learning Quranic, knowledge, It is about also learning other Islamic aspects, like, hadith, fiqh, and all sorts of Islamic knowledge, which you do not necessarily find now within the contents where this Almajiri, school are now. That is one. Secondly, most of the people that you find in this Almajiri school now, the teachers, they do not actually have even a better understanding of Islam. Many of them, they cannot even recite Quran with, with necessary, recitation, proper recitation, So you have also that challenge. So many parents they were no longer comfortable sending their kids to these people, Thirdly, you found out that in those days, when you send your kids, you also monitor him by way of visitation. I've had a family that when they used to send, their children to Maiduguri, there's a regular and constant visitation, by the parent to see how their children are actually doing. Now, in the last 20, 30 years, there is a total reverse of the case. Now, poverty has now transformed the pace of Almajiri because many parents are not able to cater for their children. So the easier way is to send their kids to this so-called Makaranta Almajiri, which, you are not even sure, in the hands of who is this mala that you are sending him to. Because he himself, he's overwhelmed by his own, incapacitation in terms of poverty, in terms of adequate Islamic knowledge and teaching. So you will now take your kid to that, person. That is why the whole thing now become a problem. Now, as a result of that, many of these kids, they are not having any parental visitation or even, care from anybody. They are virtually sleeping on the street. If you go to Motor Park, as I speak to you now, you speak to the, Road Transport, Association, they will tell you how much effort they have been making in terms of helping those Almajiri that are feeling sick, and some of them die in the motor park. Nobody knows their parents because they have been out of the school for a long time. And personally, I used to see them around. Okay, I'm from Kano City. I can tell you that 90% or 95% of the Almajiri you see in Kano, they are from other, states in the north, not from Kano, But you see everyone sending his kids because of the potential, the economic potential in Kano to come and do business and all these kind of things, And many of them at the initial stage, after learning, the Quranic school, you see them doing business, you see them, succeeding in doing business. But this system actually has been outdated because it has now become an avenue for recruiting crooks, criminals, people who can even be involved in the insurgency. Because when a child at the age of 4, 5, 6, 7, you throw him, he has no parental care, he has no guardian, he has nobody, he's on the street. Only what he is able to beg and eat. You expect him to be a decent person? This is why the criminals are recruiting them for all sorts of things. Ritual. People do ritual with children. These are the easy children that they can get to, to do the ritual. Because this is Almajiri school now. They are not registered. So many attempts in the past have been made by previous government to even register some of these things. Some people protested because they are actually basically using these kids for political troggery, for religious, crisis, for all sorts of things, So it is the wicked political class in the northern Nigeria that are not interested to reform this thing. Because once Aldona was there, in fact, at that time, there was a policy, if you don't send your child to school, you stand a risk of going, to jail. And people were sending their children to school, to modern school to learn, and today many of them have become what they are today. Without that kind of deliberate policy by the government at that time, many people would have been a victim. So what I'm trying to say now is that, you see, the northern governors, because this is usually practiced in the north, even if you see Almajiri in Lagos or in Port Harcourt, it's from the north, and there's no trace to whatever, where he come from, There's need to have a regional dialogue with some of the northern governors, to ensure that this matter is not just, remain as a talk, because we have different framework, like the SDG framework that talks about education. We have the Child Rights Act. We have even the human right. Because, look, you have to protect the child to be human being, to be potential for tomorrow. to be potential for tomorrow leader and to even involve in the economic development of the country. We cannot reduce our children, to just merely, criminals on the street. Look, the political elite in the northern Nigeria, they need to do something. And that is why I'm happy Shehu is here. Government cannot say this matter will be postponed. We must take deliberate effort to ensure that this issue is actually done as of like yesterday. Otherwise, the time will just go and so many priority of government will come, this matter will go. So if government realize that this is an issue, this is a problem, government should actually be proactive and do everything possible to ensure that they protect and save these kids from, being used for ritual, being used for all sorts of criminal, including those who are doing homosexual. They go and get these kids. So many horrible things are happening to these children. They are children. They are human beings. They need to survive. They are Nigerians. You need to give them, conducive environment for them to survive as, human beings. So this is why it is important. The local government chairman, the governors, and the federal government must have a national, dialogue to ensure that each arm of the government play its role. Because I don't think federal government should be the only, organ of government that should be responsible to deal with this matter. But federal government can lead by example. And if you have, a political will that has just been expressed, that government is worried about this, I want to believe that there's need to take more urgent intervention rather than allowing it to, go. Because when you say it's not going to be passed out now, I am telling you, many priorities will come and government will be overwhelmed. And before you know, even the tenure will go, nothing will be done.
Thank you so much. I will, Shehu, he has raised some pertinent questions. And the president just last week sort of started a conversation that a lot of people misinterpreted. Is it going to be an all-out, abolishment of the Almajiri system, or is it going to be a process that will inculcate these children into school and sort of establish them as human beings? Because I see it as being dehumanizing. Taking a 2-year-old child, 2.5-year-old child to a place like Maiduguri from Katsina to go to, learn Quranic recitation. I think it's heartbreaking. What is government doing towards that?
Well, if there had been a conspiracy of silence over a long period of time over this matter, conspiracy by parents who probably want to drain excess children, to the streets, teachers, the society, and government, I think that the president has broken that conspiracy by his recent pronouncement on the matter, which is that we must empty the streets of all of these children. You're talking about between 7 to 10 million potential engineers, potential judges, potential footballers, and people who can make useful contribution to the society. They subscribe to a system education that is not integrative. It's not integrated into the mainstream. And why did this happen? Because colonialism broke it. As the professor from Sokoto began to say, it worked for the system then. But the colonial, and under the native, the local, the traditional rulership at that time, there was a system of supervision. And the supervisors reported to the emirs. And the children who were sent to these schools had a livelihood from farms that they had. When colonialism came, a lot of these emirs were killed or deposed, and they were dispossessed of the ownership of land. And so therefore, this system, which was sustained by governance, by the system of governance at that time, couldn't find way to support this education system. And so therefore, yes, they took to the streets in order to earn livelihood for themselves and their teachers. As everyone agrees, the system is now broken. It is not working, and it has to give way for something that is better. Now, the thing to do then is to seek the integration of this system. The Boko system had been much distrusted by the locals following the way it came. For many in the early stages, they had seen the Boko, the modern school system, as a means to take them away from the religion, to take them to another form of worship. And for this reason, there was a resistance. So we must seek ways of creating trust for it. And what the president is saying is that, look, there's not going to be a one-shot solution to this problem. It has to be a gradual process. And the thing to do is, can the states in the federation, or for the most part in northern Nigeria, set up the schools, get the teachers in place, and get instructional material, and then comply with the constitution, what the constitution of the country says, that free compulsory education must be given to every Nigerian child, and that it is an offense under our constitution for a parent not to send their child to school. And the state government that fails to support this policy, that fails to provide schools and teachers and instructional material, is also complicit in abetting, the abuse of the Nigerian constitution. So logically, what this means is that if this is applied, if all of the children go to school, then there wouldn't be any left to roam the streets and to beg. But it is important that there should be integration, and the trust must be created for the modern school system among the local population. There must be consultation, people must be carried along. Any attempt to rush this might create conflict and a backlash that will be difficult to manage.
All right, Malam Gabasho, thank you very much. Earlier, I was saying that the Almajiri is singular. What is the plural? Is it Almajiris or Almajiri? Because I've heard that a few times. So
Almajiri.
The plural is Almajiri. Yeah, but it seems very convenient, in anglicizing it, just place an S.
It's not English.
Just place an S, Almajiris, So the Almajiri is singular, yes. Almajiri is plural. My question then is going to Bello Kagara. Yeah. In the first instance, the Almajiri, are they both male and female? Or is there discrimination in the way the female Almajiri are treated? That's the first leg of my question.
Right.
Second leg is, you are from UBEC. Yeah. That's Universal Basic Education Commission. Has the Almajiri system always been under the radar or on the radar of UBEC?
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much. To begin this discussion, I think it is better I start from maybe revisiting the issue of the concept of the Almajiri as being highlighted by Dr. Jabir from Sokoto and by my gentle friend here. You see, there are two images of the Almajiri. One, the image of the religious perspective of the Almajiri. The Almajiri has been somebody, a child or a learner being sent to a malam. The malam means the teacher, to learn Quranic education, to be taught morality, to be taught Islamic way of life, so that collectively in the society, the child is brought up with sound morality and sound knowledge to make him an effective member of society. That's the first angle. But the second angle, like has been highlighted by the last two speakers, is the image of the today modern Almajiri child who's been seen as a child who lacks future, a child that doesn't deserve parental and societal care, a child that has been subjugated to begin, a child, like I say, who has no future at all and does not require anybody's support. That are the two sides I want to really highlight. But then, coming back to your question as to being Almajiri or being, a girl or child, mainly in today's society, Nigerian society, especially within the northern angle, predominantly 99% of children you see in the street begging are male. So the picture is that of male child that roam the street without hope, begging, and then without hope, without future. And with this kind of scenario, you find that the Almajiri child today constitute a burden, very strong burden within the framework of the delivery of basic education in the country. And it was because of that, in order to address some key challenges that has to do with the delivery of effort goals, the attainment of the MDG goals, and now Sustainable Development Goals, that in 1999, the federal government, its wisdom under President Olusegun Obasanjo, initiated and launched the UBE program with a view to tackling the out-of-school children issue and then providing educational opportunities to all categories of children, irrespective of their gender, socio-political background, and economic background. So the Almajiri child has been within the framework of the UBE delivery process. Our UBE Act specifically highlighted that programs for the Almajiri child should be put in place in order to address this issue. So, again, that line, UBE has been embarking on so many programs toward addressing that issue. Initially, like has been highlighted by the doctor in Sokoto, Almajiri system, Almajiri ways of learning has been in existence way back since the advent of Islam. But governments, open governments, have been putting in place structures and programs to address that issue. But with the coming with UBE, there was a need was felt to now come back and then address the issue. So a national advisory committee was set up to now advise the government on the best way to address the system. That committee now led to the development of a framework, implementation framework. Then some manuals were developed to address the issue with guidelines for its implementation. Then from there, the federal government under UBE now moved into start planning for curriculum that will address the framework. Curriculum to that effect was developed by the federal government then. And not only that, textbooks, instruction materials, and teachers' guides that will now help the government and the schools especially to now deliver the process was put in place. And then from there, the government under UBEC moved into constructions. Schools were constructed across various models. Number one, there were 120 schools, model schools, that were established across the country, specifically starting with 25 states. These schools were for states to replicate because, you know, under the Constitution, the delivery of basic education and secondary education is under the purview of the state and local governments. But however, because education is in the concurrent list, the federal government intervenes by supporting state to do that. And the UBE structure is one such item, such outfit. And then, not only that again, ETF, which has now transformed to TET Fund, came into the support of UBEC by constructing 36 Islamic schools, Islamic schools in so many states. Then they provided textbooks and other instructional materials. And not only that, support funds were given to a number of Islamic schools in the country for them to now upgrade and then expand their structures, all in a view or with a view to promoting the delivery of this system to make it work and then help Nigeria achieve some level of literacy. There are a number of programs that we put in place as government, as an agency of government, to ensure that the program succeeds. Textbooks were procured towards and then distributed to so many schools and so many other programs, which maybe in the course of this discussion I will now unveil.
All right, Bello Kagara, thank you very much for what you have said. Rafsanjani, let's come back to you before we release you. You listen to what he said, that's Bello Kagara of UBEC, and what Malam Garbashe also indicated in terms of what needs to be done. In spite of what has happened, the recent construction of schools for the Almajiri system, the population of the Almajiri is exploding, as it were. What has failed?
Okay, there are quite a number of issues that led us to where we are now. Because lack of discipline by some parents is what is leading us to where we are now. You know, because in the northern Nigeria, because unfortunately many people, because of the economic situation, because of lack of also discipline, they can continue to produce children. They can marry, somebody will marry this month, impregnate the woman. Before you know, before she gave birth, he sent her back home. She gave birth, and immediately after he divorced her, he would have gone to get another wife, and he would do that. So there's no, like, a kind of discipline in the way, a manner in which some people, they do their thing. And they know, knowing the fact that they may not be able to cater, because in the past, when there's a family support, government also helped, to provide certain basic needs. Those local governors, they are not working now. And therefore, which means that people should actually be disciplined to make sure that, before they go and start producing children that they cannot be able to take care of, they need to be careful so that they don't throw these children, and their rights become abused. The main reason why you see the population of Almajiri is increasing is basically poverty. It's basically lack of also policy to deal with people who just abuse their own children. Because even though they are your children, like you find in other countries, in America and Europe and many places, if you abuse your child, if you do anything that is wrong, the government take control of the child. But in Nigeria, the local government, the state government, and the federal government, they are not yet putting anything in place that will deal with such kind of thing. If today, that's why I call for dialogue between the local government and the state and federal government to see how some of these innovative ideas, and even with the commitment that the president has made, how those things can be realized. Otherwise, if you just leave it in the hands of only one arm of government, it will be extremely difficult to achieve that. So we need every hand in place to ensure that, beyond the policy pronouncement, we actually have things that will be done in action. We need to see concrete results. Why should people be seeing, look, these kids that you are seeing, they are no longer going to any school. Go and interview them. They don't go to any school. From morning to night, they don't even pray. You'll be shocked to see that the child that he claimed to have been sent to come to his, Almajiri school, this person has no relationship with the school at all any longer. No shoe, sometimes the clothes they are wearing, there's no way a human being will be wearing that kind of thing. Why should government allow that to be happening? In the past, like I said, Sardona, and in fact, even Let's Abokarimi made a good intervention in this country, which became a good lesson not only in Nigeria but also in other places. He introduced Makarantar Matang Aure Garba. You guys, you are the elders. You know this thing. Many women that were married and did not have opportunity to even go to primary school. With that system that Rimi introduced, I tell you, in fact, even last week on Sunday, I saw in Daily Trust one of the women that, is now a graduate, is a product of that kind of thing. Because there was, because there was a political will from the government to do things. All I'm saying is simply it's a political will. You have security board that you are using to do political toggery, that you are using to siphon, to do whatever thing. Why can't you channel some of these funds? Because it can no longer be an excuse of lack of resources. I don't want to believe that, because the amount of resources that is being wasted at local government, at state, and possibly at federal government level, if you channel those into more productive use, you would have been able to deal with this matter. So the truth of the matter is that even if you say we cannot phase out the Almajiri system, why can't you take a stock of the schools that we have? Every quarter, every area, if you have Almajiri school, make sure that it's registered, the teacher is known. But as I speak to you today, nobody can give you data of all these schools, and those malams. And therefore, we just do things just the way, we are doing, and allow children to be Boko Haram, recruiters. Because let me tell you, all these people that you see, they are doing criminalities. They recruit people who their parents have abandoned. Because any good child that his parents care for and train him or her will not be, possible for the criminals to recruit him for other criminality, armed robbery, kidnapping, or even Boko Haram insurgency. Because there is no any policy from the government to ensure strict adherence to certain policy and programs. I am pleading with the president, that he should lead this conversation. Let him not just stop at talk. He should physically and practically ensure that the states and local governments are actually encouraged to do this. Since we cannot force them, because we are operating federal system, the government can make the necessary change. And before you know, within a period of time, you can be able to deal with this menace that we see. Why should we be allowing our kids to be dying? Simply because of the carelessness of some people, or because some people want to groom them and use them for political toggery or religious, crisis. Go and check. Most of the trouble that happen, especially in the north, are from people, from children that have no parental care or parental, upbringing. Nobody will want to go and be doing things that is wrong in the society if you are properly brought up. Because at the time you will be doing that, you will have been in school. Or at least somebody will caution you. But this one, they don't even know anybody who will caution them. Because at the age of 4, when you are thrown, you are in the motor park, you are in all sorts of this. What love will you have for anybody? When they kidnap you, they will not have pity for you. Because nobody ever pity them.
So they become hardened.
No, yes. Are you saying when they kidnap you?
Kingsley will bring in a lot of money, don't mind. Thank you so much.
They say Nigerians will say I reject it.
Thank you, Malam Awal Musarraf Sarjani, the Executive Director of the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC. Thank you so much for coming. I hear you have an appointment to meet up with. It's been a pleasure having you and your contribution. Thank you so much. Yes, it's a burning topic that needs to be discussed, actually. Yes. So I'll now go back to Malam Garba Shehu. Malam Bello Kagara spoke about schools that were built by previous administration to cater for this Almajiri system, Almajiri children. But I'll get back to you now, but we need to take a break. When we come back, I give you the questions again.
Our country is filled with people with different skills, talents, and passion to succeed. And like the game football, we all have a position to play. Some save the day. They put themselves on the line for the others. They are the goalkeepers. Some are in charge of protection. They keep the line safe from attackers. They are the defenders. The midfielders are the ones who bring us together. They also show support and point other players in the right direction. And the strikers, they are the goal-getters. They break barriers and steal the show. As a team, we are unstoppable. For this country to succeed, we must play as Nigeria united.
Are you aware that your perfect family may be under threat by germs? Germs can cause infectious diseases like diarrhea, typhoid, and flu. These infectious diseases are amongst the biggest killers of adults and children. In Nigeria, tens of thousands of children under the age of 5 have died due to diarrhea caused by germs, which could easily have been prevented. These illness-causing germs are everywhere. Dirty surfaces, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes, in unclean bathing water. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 capsule. For surface cleaning, for first aid, for your laundry, in your bathing water, and to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure.
Chief. Good morning, sir. You are here already?
No. Now my spirit day, my body day for house. What kind of question is that? Were you not the one that fixed this meeting for 8 a.m.? You are now coming by 10 a.m. and start asking me jab questions.
But Chief, now, I'm sorry. Don't you also go late for meetings sometimes? You know now, African time.
No more African time. And no more pancaking of face during office hours. At the end of the day, we will lose valuable time. We will not make progress. If we want to move this nation forward, we must treat business as business and respect time. Change begins with me.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry. Can we go for the meeting now, Chief?
Better.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Thanks for staying with Good Morning Nigeria. Malam Garbashir, I was throwing a question at you earlier before we went on the break. Malam Bello Kagara talked about construction of model schools for Almajiri. At that moment in time, a lot of Nigerians said, okay, now at least we're going to have a respite from the Almajiri scourge. But all of a sudden, nothing is heard about the school. Is it going to be a continuity? Are you going to track yourself back to these schools? Because they are already established, these schools have been built. Are you going to track yourself back and, you know, try to find out a way of inculcating this school into the system of Almajiri and taking these children off the school? Because most of them were boarding schools, if I can remember. Can it be done? Are we going back, or are we starting a new phase of eradicating the Almajiri scourge in Nigeria?
Well, you know that it's a huge project. Yes. Yes, we've been told that model schools have been set up in a number of 36 states of the Federation. Look, you are dealing with a major national problem, the size of which, as I said, you have left out 7 to 10 million children out of school. And so you need accommodation for them in the school system. Now, something has been anticipated under their own UBEC. You know that the states, a lot of the states in the country, particularly some of those that are bedeviled by this problem, have enormous amounts of money that is unclaimed from UBEC, because the system is such that you must put on the table counterpart funding for you to draw the bigger, federal money that is there. Yesterday, I was at a meeting where a particular state is, from one of the northern states, is said to have 7 billion naira from UBEC that they could draw. But they needed to put 10% of that 700 million in order that they are taking. And because of the lack of commitment on the part of the states, they will not put down that 700 million in order to draw
7 billion.
So this is, and one thing that the president said in that speech at the NEC, about which much attention has not been paid to, is he said, we are going to assist the states to access UBEC funding. So I imagine that maybe the president has in mind a situation where whether states will be loaned money to go and put on the table to get this money, or some form of change may be effected to this relationship between the states and the federal government. But it would appear that we have come to the point where, enormous resources will have to be pushed in that direction so that states and local councils will be able to deliver on this responsibility.
Madam Gaba, I mean, we want to go over to our Sokoto Network Center. Are you hinting that the federal government will have to persuade state governments to place their counterpart funds? I mean, it's like, if you ask me today to say, look, bring in a naira and then you give me $1 million, you think I will hesitate to give you $1 million?
Well, that's the fact of the matter is that they're there. It's the money is there.
Honestly,
they're not drawing it.
Before Sokoto speaks, yes. I would like to clear the air on the counterpart fund issue.
Yes.
Until October last year, the issue of state accessing the UBEC counterpart fund was an issue. But courtesy of the goodwill of Mr. President through the Paris Club deductions, all states that were owing their counterpart fund to UBEC, monies of such state equivalent to that those counterpart funds were deducted from those states, and they are now in the comfort of UBEC.
Okay.
So the issue of accessing UBEC counterpart fund today is one issue.
No bottlenecks?
No bottlenecks, yeah. All monies being owed to UBEC had been deducted to, from the state coffers through the Paris Club deductions, and then, refund, Paris Club fund, and then taken to UBEC.
Warehouse.
We are now in the process of states coming to now access the money through submission of action plans. That's where we are now.
Okay.
And the majority of the states have submitted their action plans. Now UBEC, as at yesterday, many states were there collecting their allocation letters, and then, that's the scenario.
All right, the next thing will be to get ICPC and EFCC to also track
the money.
to follow the money. We will return to you, Malam Bello Kagara. Let's return to Dr. Mehula in Sokoto Network Center. In all of this, Nigeria sometimes, from our experience, we are good at throwing money at problems. But money doesn't always solve, all kinds of problems. From your understanding of the Almajiri system, why has it been allowed to fester into the degenerative state that we have seen it? In other words, why is it that state and local governments appear not to have the political will to address this phenomenon? If we're talking about 10 million out-of-school children or 10 million children roaming the streets, these are a social challenge to the various states and local governments. Why have they turned a blind eye to this issue, apparently?
Well, thank you very much. Firstly, I think we are underestimating this issue. We need to make a holistic and academic approach to this issue. We need to tackle it from both sides. We need to mention the good side of this Almajiri and the bad side of it. Now, if we only concentrate on the bad side, it is deteriorating, it is bringing chaos in the society, it is creating Boko Haram and all sorts of negative things and kidnappers, then when government prescribe it, government will be thinking that they have done good to the society without providing an alternative. And this is a big problem. I know many politicians, and when I say many, I know what I mean. I know many well-to-do individuals. I know professors in the university who are the product of this system. The previous administrations understand and recognize the importance of this literacy, of informal literacy, to such an extent that if you look at Nigerian currency, there is an ajami written, meaning that there are people in Nigeria that only understand this type of literacy, that are only literate in this form. Now, if you're saying we should wipe it away without thinking of other strong alternatives, then you might be creating chaos to the society. Now, coming back to your question, that why the state and local government neglecting this, because they are not conscious of that. It needs to be addressed in a very big form. I think the conversation we started now, the conversation the federal government started, will definitely help a long way in eradicating this for good, in a way that it will bring the alternative that will be placed will be a good alternative. Firstly. Secondly, when I heard Garba Shehu was speaking, he talked about integration. Also, when Bello Kagara was talking about integration, let's be realistic to ourselves. Are the public school now able to contain all the children? If you go to any public school, you listening to me, you viewing me now, if you go to any of the public school near you now, you'll find that they are overpopulated. Now we're talking about adding 10 million children to this system. Do you think it's something easy? If you go to most of the public school around you, I know what I'm saying. I know the public school. I can imagine the public school around me. Most of the people are sitting on the ground. There are no such curriculum, textbooks, and what have you that Bello Kagara discussed about. So what can you do with these 10 million people? I think the best way is integration. And when we're talking about this integration, I think it's more political than practical. Because now, as I'm speaking to you in Sokoto, how many schools are integrated? We know many Almajiri schools around, but maybe you find only 1, 2 that had the intervention. Now, Bello Kagara is talking about they built 120 schools across 25 states. 120 schools cannot contain 5 local governments out of school children in Sokoto State, let alone the whole north, let alone 25 states, let alone if you're talking about out of school children, we are not talking about only Almajiris. We are talking about out of school children for one reason or the other. So the government needs to know that, as Garba Shehu says, that this is a serious issue. This is a big issue that we need a long-term plan. And this plan, as I said, it should be an academic and holistic approach to it to see how can we actualize it in a short and long-term basis. This is it. And secondly, definitely there is need for state and local government to come in. And they need sensitization. You need to know the people who have the technical know-how. What will be the consequences? It shouldn't be only on political base. It should be on, bring people, bring academics, bring the teachers of these Almajiris. Don't neglect them. Don't see them as vice in the society. As I said earlier, they produce professors, they produce politicians, they produce well-to-do individuals in the society. Bring them in the committee. Also bring some social analysts, security agencies, and look at how holistically we can address this issue and bring a good alternative.
All right, Dr. Mehula, thank you very much for your points. Now, the argument is The Almajiri system worked in the past, but what is observable now is a breakdown of that system. Malam Garba Shehu talks about creating and building trust for the Boko system. Is that going to be a mountain to climb?
It might be a mountain to climb. It might be a rocket science. It might be something difficult because it might be easier said than done. If only the government can walk the talk, then it will be easier for us to understand and to conceptualize and to practicalize. But in the system whereby, as I said earlier, if you go to any public school, there is no space for one child to be added. If you're going for, I think, UNICEF or a policy of 25 child for a classroom, if you go to any class, you'll find 120 children in the class, and you are thinking about adding 10 million people. So it's definitely a mountain, a big mountain. It's big mountain to climb. It's not an easy thing, unless otherwise if the government work harder. Now, when Bello Kagara was talking about the previous administration till today, we have only 120 schools. I would say only 120 schools built. This is something that could be done in one of the administrations if the issue is to be given due consideration. And you're talking about how many states of the federation. We need more effort. We need all hands to be on deck. What I'm saying is that this shouldn't be left to government alone, civil societies, non-governmental organizations, and we shall look at ways in which to enhance it. We can't say we'll leave it on government to build schools and we wait for government to build schools. What to do, individuals can also come in. And we can go to these schools and make them integrated schools without needing a structure, another structure. Some of these schools can accommodate. What we need is the knowledge. It's not the big classroom and fancy classroom and will be commissioned, and it costs a lot of money. When the state government construct this classroom, they need to invite the president, and they will spend maybe hundreds of millions on welcoming the president. Instead of that, do the needful. Go to this school, interact with these teachers, and also make this integration within their own school, within the environment. We can start with that before we are able to establish structures that can contain all of them.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Mehula. Jume,
yes.
I think it might be useful to get Bello Kagara,
yes,
to come in here and speak, because he's been talking about inadequacy of schools, and of course that's a direct.
That's an area that really requires some clarification and explanation. You see, like I said at the beginning of my discussion, that education, the constitutional role of providing basic education is that of the state and local governments. What the federal government does through WIBEC is intervention. And through our intervention activities, we always try to provide models. Implementation models with regard to training, implementation models with regard to classrooms, structures that will add value to the system. What we do through the construction of these schools is provision of models for the state to emulate and replicate. So when I cited 120 schools, they are one form of model of the schools we built. Remember, in my discussion, I said, apart from that, we supported 270 schools, proprietors to now expand their schools using our model. And then not only that, there are other forms of intervention we do in UBEC under the Almajiri program. We have the Model 1 schools, the Model 2 schools, and the Model 3 schools. We have 3 models, which we now showcase as good and best practices. We have a number of construction model schools, schools that we now showcase to the local governments and the state. The essence, like I said, is for the state to replicate, because we are doing this to now assist them.
Why are the states and local governments not latching on to the federal government idea?
Okay, now, one of the key issues, like has been highlighted by various speakers, is the issue of will. Will is central, political will is central and key to the state's performance. To be frank and sincere, it's one of the bane of our programs, that states do not take it serious when it comes to addressing the issue of the Almajiri issue, the Almajiri case in Nigeria, especially in northern Nigeria. And then, to be specific, addressing the Almajiri situation today in the country does not require a one-off solution. You have to look at the challenges that are hindering the Almajiri school from going to school. One, at the level of economy, at the level of parental care, at the level of parental attitude, not even parental, but parental and societal attitude, from bottom to top. To be frank and sincere, the Nigerian society is such a society that has closed its eyes completely to the issue of the Almajiri issue. This is the actual truth. It was why when I was speaking, I said we really have to distinguish between who really the Almajiri is from the religious perspective and who the Almajiri is in today's Nigerian perspective view. So if you look at the economy, parental attitude, social attitude, then I come to see what are the challenges, inherent challenges in the program. Now, one, the issue of teacher. The issue of teacher quality is key. We have to have a system that has adequate trained teachers to now deliver. We have to have adequate provision for social welfare of the child in school. We have to provide accommodation. We have to really take care of the security, the internal security or personal security of the child when he's in school. And all this to be clear and precise are absent in today's model, in the today process of running the Almajiri child and the Almajiri education system. You find that the child is being sent to a malam who doesn't even have the wherewithal to keep himself, not talk of keeping or taking care of 100 children or 50 children that are put under his care. Until and unless we now address those issues, together with even bringing all and sundry within the focus of the program, it requires collective national response to address. One, the participation of international communities, the participation of the private sector, the participation of wealthy individuals, the participation of the government and all educationists to now come and address the issue. And not only this, like I'm telling you, there are a number of issues that has to be with, like I said, attitudinal issues. We build schools. But you find that in most of the states we build schools, the schools are not being used for the purpose for which it is built. In one state I know, out of the 8 schools of the school we built, none, there is no single chair in the 8 schools we built. We've been following that with advocacy, sensitization, local context, but still no result is seen. In some states, you find that we built 5 schools, but maybe it's only 2 or 3 that are used. In one state, I know the schools have been, no, maybe I should not really divulge all this information.
I was just wondering, I mean, is this a class oppression technique or is it a class issue that we all close our eyes? It's not just, we're discussing a Almajiri phenomenon now, but you go to other parts of the country and you find street hawkers who are children, who have no business with education whatsoever. Is this a clash, as I said, is it a clash of classes, or is an oppressive technique that is meant, to keep the downtrodden and then continue to have them as hewers of wood and drawers of water. I'm sure the Marxists will
Marxist theory there. It's trying to create a huge gap between the upper class and the lower class.
That's exactly what I wanted to say.
One thing we have in Nigeria is now we don't even have a middle class. It's either you're up there or you're down.
You're down, exactly. Yes. Nigeria today is typically a capitalist state. We cannot run away from that. Nobody cares about what happened to others. It's all about myself and my family. In Nigeria today, the educated only think of themselves. The rich men think of themselves. Nobody cares about taking care of his neighbor. Talk less of somebody who is maybe seen as an Almajiri or somebody who is blind and destitute. To talk just about this kind of things.
Vulnerable.
Yeah, and the vulnerable.
And the young girls doing tella on the street.
But to be precise, under UBEC, we have a number of programs that are addressing not only the Almajiri child, but even the categories of children he's speaking of. Okay. We have programs for the southern state, business-oriented children. We have the boy child program, where we address, business issues. We establish schools in southeast and south-south for acquisition of trade and skills. Specifically, we call that program the Boy Child Program in the south, east, and south-south.
What about the girl child?
Even the girl child. We have several programs for the girl child. Okay. We have the Old School Girl Child Initiative. And as I'm speaking to you, today I'm going to attend a meeting where our patron was called the Commonwealth of Learning to pilot another program known as Open School System, where we open up to the girl child, and other categories of disadvantaged children. And then we have second chance schools. It's a program, again, we now put in place to now address the education of married women and other categories of children that don't have access to education. A number of programs we have in the country.
Bala Bello Kaga, you keep saying some of these things we've heard about them in the past, you know, something adult and literacy agency. You keep hearing all of this, but when you look at the numbers, you know, the population is growing. When you look at the negative numbers, as it were, you just keep asking yourself whether we are making a dent and whether indeed you have follow-ups. Because some of these ideas come from the federal government or at the federal level, and cascading it to the state and local governments become a challenge. Local governments, unfortunately, this is one of the consequences of local governments that are not effectively functional in the country. By the way, we have a number of tweets that have come in from our viewers, and we are taking those tweets right now. Donladi Ndayebo tweets, the problem of northern Nigeria has been the neglect of its human capital as is manifest in the Almajiri phenomenon. Islam does not encourage begging. Responsible parenting will go a long way in raising offspring that can compete on equal terms anywhere in the world.
And Husanda 2003 tweets, a law should be made banning the Almajiri system and to introduce free and compulsory education in all of the affected states.
Now, this is Ibrahim Tudu tweeting. It takes political will on the part of northern governors to end Almajiri. I believe Almajiri would therefore be the Almajiri phenomenon. That would be the Almajiri phenomenon.
Yes.
Right, Almajiri. Unfortunately, that political will is not there with the politicians.
Exactly. And Akeju or Logbaju tweets, Almajiri is a form of Islamic education and every Islamic child has a right to it. He or she likes. The problem here is the way it is operated. This is where we need aggressive reform to ensure that such a child has access to good quality life.
Now, Amagwala Hambab has this tweet. Now, it says, it's a commendable move by the federal government to have a holistic look at how to address the Almajiri quagmire. Kudos to the presidency, he tweets. Now, this is some of the tweets that we have in the meantime.
Yes, and I will have to direct my question now to Malam Garba Shehu. Malam Bello Kagara raised a lot of pertinent issues. All I hear is about schools, building of schools, putting them. But are we looking at it holistically? You know, reorientation, rehabilitation. Most of these children on the street are hardened by the elements, abused by people. How are we going to work on their psyche to make sure that they stay in school and do not think that school is not enough, I'm not being taken care of, that they stay in school and get an education? It's a right, not a privilege.
Yeah, well, these children have been given us to God to care for them, so therefore they should be treasured and be protected. And unfortunately, as we said, the Almajiri system is broken and has to be fixed. But at the end of the day, and I like elements that Kingsley has himself raised, because we may solve the problem of Almajiri in the short or long run, and the societal problems will still remain. Because if we are narrow in our thinking, and very general in a way, by, for instance, as we have heard from one or two of the contributors, blaming perhaps all of the country's problems on the Almajiri system. The Almajiri system will go one day. But unless all of those problems are holistically addressed, you cannot solve problems. In this country, if you're talking about parental upbringing or poverty, we have had children of senators and the governors as armed robbers, 419, and kidnappers. So therefore, and why did the society hold on to this in spite of, the Almajiri system? Because it had some functionality, it had some function that was positive. Yes, but not all of them who go through the Almajiri system make it. Many fall by the wayside to criminality, ill health, or they're killed for ritual and whatever purposes. So therefore, it's a system that has to be addressed. But I think that the country has enormous challenges, enormous social challenges, that at the same time as we're addressing Almajiri, we must also be addressing, our social problems.
Well, thank you, Malam Garba Shehu. Dr. Mehula, Malam Garba Shehu has raised the issue that we don't have to look at this in silos. Maybe you have interconnectivity in terms of dealing with the problems. Let me raise this question with you and tell us how potentially challenging it might be at the beginning and therefore what solutions can be found out. One, can we have a census, for instance, of those who are in the Almajiri system in the beginning? And having a census and also having an identity system for them, either through NIMSI or whoever, state or whatever, so that if a child is picked up at some awkward location, the child can properly be identified. There is also the question of family planning. It's a problem, it's an issue we have discussed on Good Morning Nigeria. Nigeria is already facing a demographic crisis, pushing 200 million, and we see what the job situation is with us and what the consequences are. In 20 years, our population has virtually doubled. Is it possible, to overcome in many parts of the country what would appear to be cultural and even religious obstacles to effective family planning?
Let me start with the first issue of census. Yes, it's possible, and I think it's needful, and I think it's a first step. When government is saying that we are going to plan for them, you need to know who you are planning for. Now, when we say that we have like 10 million out-of-school children, this is just approximation. There's no certainty. This is just like, we think they are about this figure, but when you have a census, it is then that you have a certain number of people that you're going to cater for. Then you will know how much do they need, and also how can we make it. Also in the census, we'll find out their age limit, we'll find out their categories, we'll find out their tribes, we'll find out their locations, we'll find out how to reach them, and that's what you refer to as identity. So it's very possible. Now, when you come to the issue of family planning, definitely it is needful, but also I know there are committees on the way. I have attended several meetings in and outside this country about this issue, and I know there are interventions from USAID, from UKAID, from so many agencies to tackle that issue. It shouldn't be combined with the issue of Almajiri. They should be treated separately. We need to treat each issue on itself so that the committee that is been tackled with the responsibility of this will have time to look at this issue. If the issue of family planning comes on, then that very committee will know how to address it to the committee or committees that are tackling the issue of family planning. You kept on asking one question, almost you asked every one of us, why are the state and local government not having the political will? There are many reasons to that, part of which is that this is an issue that will squander a lot of wealth, but it will attract less votes. It needs a very sincere and patriotic politician to say that I will use the allocation, I will use the amount of wealth we have in my state, in my local government, to tackle this issue that will not attract votes for me. So it requires really patriotic people to tackle this issue.
So it's not a project, as they say. So you can't commission dealing with the Almajiri phenomenon. So therefore, it's not attractive as it were. But that's an issue that we'll have to take a look at going forward. We have a number of tweets that have again come in. They're speaking to some of the points that have just been addressed by our guests. Amangbala Hombabs is back again. Amina Michela talking about birth control, and Badamasi Adamu is saying that the shelter and food of the Almajiri, are with the political office holders, and unless the politicians deliver on their social contract, nothing will be achieved. I think that what is dangerous is that the primary scavengers are more of a problem rather than the Almajiri system. So this is some of the issues, but again, back to UBEC. Ultimately, one might say, dealing with the basic education system, because once a person gets through a sound basic education system, it's a lot easier to build, because that's the foundation. Will UBEC find the Almajiri phenomenon a cardinal objective now to pursue, so that going forward, we're not 10 million, you can't take all of them out, but going forward, we'll systematically reform the system, reduce the numbers of the vagrants as they are in the meantime?
Yeah, absolutely. bringing the Almajiri within the central foci of UBEC intervention is not something new. It's something that UBEC has been doing, like I said, from my previous talks, my previous discussion. UBEC has been on and doing on addressing the issue through our programs, which have to do with the construction of schools, different schools.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
let me just jump in here and interrupt. Let me rephrase the question, rather than just saying you beg. Because, you know, at the state level, you have SUBEB at the state. So that's I'm looking at that collaborative effort rather than beg.
I'm going there.
Okay,
I just want to show you that and tell the world that UBEC has been up and doing when it comes to addressing the Almajiri issue, the Almajiri phenomenon. One, through construction of modern schools, bearing in mind that it is not the sole responsibility of UBEC to provide everything for the states. It's for UBEC to guide, showcase good practices in order to make the states implement at the grassroots level. To link up closely with the communities and the actual providers of the system to now showcase best practices. One, we've done that at the level of, like I said, construction of classrooms, at the level of production of instructional materials, curriculum. We've done that at the level of training of the malams, even providing capacities to the proprietors of these Islamic schools and the Quranic education system. We've done that at the level of even connectivity with our quality assurance at both UBEC and SUBEB, and even at the Almajiri schools, to ensure that they monitor the effective use of the curriculum and the instructional materials in order to ensure quality. Not only that, we went again down the grassroots level to school level, whereby we trained our officers and the SBMCs on how to anchor the SBMC to monitor the system. So from the level of framework to the level of instructional materials to construction, down to the low level of implementation and partnership. All this we've done. But then, like I said, the issue of Almajiri needs a holistic approach. We need a national rebirth, a national consciousness to address this issue from the level of sensitization, advocacy and sensitization on the need to now face the Almajiri challenge squarely.
All right, I was just wondering. Yeah, well, Madam Bello, thank you very much. You know, you were reading out what has happened in terms of UBEC and perhaps SUBEB, and some persons will say, okay, those ones will equate to output. What is the outcome? The outcome is that on the Almajiri scale, we still have a major problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Madam Gabasheo, very, very quickly, maybe perhaps as a takeoff point for sensitization, some of the issues that might come up. I know this will be an elaborate issue for information, the Council on Information, and all of that. Is the Almajiri system practiced in places like Dubai, Kuwait, or elsewhere?
No, actually, even in Nigeria, I think this started in the 11th century. It had not been with Nigeria all of the time. And which means that it's an innovation which served a purpose at that time and which now faces serious challenges. And then challenges that must now be confronted. There is a need going forward that even the private sector, in addition to states, and get involved. There is what is called the Islamia school model, which has been that to introduce subjects like mathematics, English language, and geography into the Quranic school system. This has not been too successful. Look, this country has just to integrate and have one school system. And the best way to do this is bring this content into the modern school system so that the people themselves will be trusting of it. And there will be no need for... and I hope that what the government aims to do is remove all of the children, send them to school, and then teach them all of these things at the same time would solve all these problems.
Okay, briefly, what are we foreseeing in the next 3 years?
We hope that the president would continue to put state governments under pressure because this is primarily in their own area of responsibility, so that they would live up to their own responsibility and create infrastructure for education for these children that we have abandoned to an unwanted situation.
Exactly. And to the Beckman, are you following the money trail?
The
money trail from federal to government in Ubec?
How do you mean?
Will you follow the money trail and find out how the money is spent?
Of course, yeah.
Briefly.
Yeah,
as your
briefly,
closest novel.
UBEC has a very sound monitoring outfit on the Almajiri schools. The monitoring is an essential component of the Almajiri program. But essentially, in order to move the entire program forward, I think, like I was saying, we need collective participation. Like Garba Shehu was saying, we need the participation of all, especially the private sector, in addressing the issue. It's not only government that should be shouldering the responsibility of addressing the Almajiri phenomenon. The wealthy individuals within the localities need to be so much conscientized to see what can they do to now help the children, such category of children within the society, to now acquire education.
Their wealth is meaningless in the face of millions who are in poverty. All right. On that note, sorry, Bello Kagara, Director of Social Mobilization, would like to thank you for being on Good Morning Nigeria today. And also, Malam Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President, Media and Publicity. Thanks a lot for being with us.
Thank you.
And from our Sokoto Network Center, we're joined by Dr. Sani Mehula. He's Head of Arabic and Islamic Studies at Sokoto State University at the seat of the Caliphate. Thanks a lot for your thoughts on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you.
Okay, earlier we signed off Rafsanjani, who was part of the conversation. Now we take one of our segments, and that's sports.